Live from parts unknown, you're listening to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast, the only wrestling podcast on the planet, we think. Sit back, relax, prepare for positivity to run through your veins as Simon Miller gives you your weekly dose of powerful pro wrestling audio. It is Miller Time.
Hello and welcome to the Week in Gaming. My name is Simon Miller, and look, literally, you know, what the hell must have frozen over, not just because of the snow and not just because of the weather in Britain right now, but because we're actually smashing an episode of the Week in Gaming out on Monday, which is always the plan, and I usually ruin the plan. But look, sometimes things just go right, and that is what we're doing right now. If you've never listened to before, this is a video game podcast about the Week in Gaming, so hopefully when all is said and done and you walk away in the next hour or so, you'll have all the information you need, which will then be out of date, because video games always do that. You talk about something and then boom, new information comes out. Yeah. As always, I'm joined by my man, my co-host Sam. How you doing today, Sam?
I'm cold.
It starts cold today as it was over the weekend, though, to be fair.
I'm still cold.
Well, you're still had to be cold, but I was pleasantly surprised when I woke up this morning. Although saying that, I don't know, I would always pick cold over heat, but at the same time, I don't really want it as... I don't want snow. I'm that guy. You can call me bar humbug, whatever. Snow can fuck off. That's my opinion on snow, especially because it broke my car. But we've already talked about that, Sam and I. We don't need to talk about it again. Right. I mean, it's a news-heavy week, so we're going to go through as much as we can. I want to throw out there, because we did talk about it last week, that, a load of people played Crackdown. All you need to know is it looks like Crackdown, but we'll get round to that once it comes out in a few weeks. Actually, before we do get to the news, Sam, you told me about a game you've been playing, and it made me laugh straight away, because you've been playing a company called Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy.
Yes.
Which sounds...
Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy is a PS2/Xbox/GameCube game.
Now, what a thing to go back to, Sam. I mean, what on earth possessed you to turn the clock back to such an adventure?
But it's just been re-released on Switch. That's the
Why? My big question is why. I looked it up. I think it looks brilliant. It looks like one of those games that it will be quintessentially 7 out of 10 forever, but that's okay.
Yeah, basically, I think you hit the nail on the head, because I don't know why, but THQ Nordic decided of all the games to bring this one back.
I love it.
Cool, whatever. It's a Zelda clone, basically. So it's one of those big worlds where you need, I don't know, the jar of dreams to access the door, but you can't do that until you're later on in the game, sort of thing. You know that sort of Ocarina of Time thing where you need to get one item to go somewhere else, and then get another item to go somewhere else, and then eventually the world sort of unfolds a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's very PS2. The camera's a bit janky. There's no voice acting, but it's one of those simple games. It's a simpler time of games. It's nice to actually go back to one of those where it's not like, don't have to be an epic game like we seem to have these days. It's not cinematic. It's just, you just go and save the day, you do some platforming, you do some puzzles, it's all good. It's just, I really actually quite I'd love for more PS2 games to be on the Switch, because it's sort of the perfect platform for that now. Just be on the train and just be like, I just worked out a bit of that PS2 game. It's great.
I'm watching it now, and a guy is just throwing coconuts at a tree. That's what he's doing. The objective seems to be pick up coconut and hurl it at a tree. I don't know why.
That's the beginning. Yeah, you get more stuff.
I like games like this, though. We talked about this before, but was this a THQ game originally? Or
I couldn't tell you about the original version, actually. I did play it originally, but that's ages ago. I can't remember. It
was Eurocom, which kind of it was THQ. What was it? Eurocom and THQ had millions of games, well, hundreds of games like this. It's like... This has, it's not a new conversation, but that kind of B game has fallen by the wayside over the last few years. And obviously, THQ was always at the top of that B game developer. And I don't say that disparagingly at all. I love games like this. Like, you kind of knew what you were going to get before you sat down and played it. Most of them did ape other games, like you said. This one just kind of ripped off Zelda, but they were fun. They were easy to play. Like you say, portable. Absolutely, would give games like this new life. And it's kind of a shame we don't have these things anymore, because basically all you get nowadays is either cool, quirky indie games or full-on $1 million AAA games. And that middle section is gone. And it's a shame, because I like Eurocom. I don't think Eurocom was still around. No, they're dead. But I mean, Eurocom had all the greats. So if you just look through it now, apparently they made Dead Space Extraction for the Wii, but forgetting about... I mean, they made Batman Begins, right? Now, Batman Begins is not a good video game, and Batman Begins had a lot of problems, but I tell you, much like I bet Sphinx, whatever it's called, it's playable. So it's really easy to sit down and just enjoy it. And I imagine they probably got more misses than hits. They've also got Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, which I remember a good friend of mine, Ryan King, playing down at Imagine and writing the funniest review I've ever read of a video game. Like, it was, if you can find X360 magazine with that review, and he just tore it to pieces. And the reason it was so funny is that when you actually thought about it, like, yeah, why does it play like this? But they made James Bond Jr., they made, where's it got, an Earthworm Jim game. You know, it's just so many sort of little games. They made Disney's Hercules, which I remember, which again was not great, but it was so easy to play.
Did they make Hercules?
They made Disney's Hercules on the PlayStation, in 1997.
Disney's action game called Hercules or whatever it was.
Yeah. And I tell you, it's just, again, if you've never played these games and you go look them up, you'll think that we're crazy. But they had a certain, I don't know what it was, a certain something about them that was really...
Yeah, just a simplicity. Like, it seems like all games are sort of like, if you sit down, you've got to commit to it. But this is just like, you know what, I'll just slog this through. It's all good. Fixed save points they could have done without. Like, it could have done with a few little touch of polishes, just like save anywhere, just sort of like ease of life sort of things like we've come to expect. Like, voice acting as well. Obviously, that would have been a bit more of an effort, but like, to put it's sort of a straight port entirely, so that's all you're getting, really. Yeah, and
I don't mind that. Honestly, I would love for them to come back. I mean, they're not, because they're just not, you know, you could argue that's probably one of the reasons that THQ aren't here anymore, because they invested too much money into things like this and they didn't get a return. I mean, that was the problem with Darksiders. I've told this before. You know, there's statute of limitations, but we can talk about this as far as we want now. But, you know, THQ wanted Darksiders 2 to be they wanted it to be their massive game. And they overly invested in it. And of course, it didn't have that kind of return because, again, you know, not to try and crap over them, but I think most people knew where it would sit. And fair play to them for having ambition. I think it was that and Homefront. Was it Homefront their shooter for FPS? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think between that and they kind of had loftier ambitions than maybe they were able to realise. And it sucks because now we don't have anybody like that. And I mean, how long have you played Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy for?
Like 7 hours.
Yeah, see?
So it's quite a lot. Like, I was just saying, just because I was out and about and sort of doing stuff, it was just easy to sort of have on the Switch, do a bit of, it's like, do you remember when you used to do, or you might not have done this, but like in PS2 era games when you had the walkthroughs that were all just sort of typewriter text, one long document you had to scroll through. I actually found one of those because I got stuck with the original game and I was like, oh, this was the life, wasn't it? Like, you don't get that anymore.
You don't, and I miss it. And I think you smashed the nail on the head. The Switch is perfect for that kind of game. Absolutely perfect. We've mentioned the Switch as well. We're going to talk about other more important things, but you know, let's segue like true professionals, because there was some Nintendo news that came out. The kind of more boring one is it should be a surprise to nobody. There's rumors that a smaller, more portable Switch is rumored to be in development. I mean, of course there is, because all Nintendo needs to do is look at the success that the PlayStation and the Xbox has had over the last few years. And why wouldn't you release a Switch Slim? Do you know what I mean? Like, it makes perfect sense in the world. I'd be more surprised if they didn't do that. But of course, now the rumors are out there. I'd imagine they'd probably announce it in a few months and release it towards the end of the year. And more power to them.
Yeah. I mean, it's just hard to tell with these sorts of rumors, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could start a rumor right now, and all it takes is one person to post it on Twitter. But we could, though, right?
Maybe we should.
Yeah, if we said it proper seriously, all it takes is one tweet and the wrong person, the right person to pick up on it, and that's it. It's a rumor. But you know, when I read that, it didn't make my eyes bulge out of my head. I was like, yeah, I mean, you probably do want to do that because you'll get more sales out of it. You just will, you know, especially if someone's more into a 3DS than they are the Switch. If you can offer them one that's kind of more beneficial out in the wild, they're saying that the Switch is fine, but you know, these things always. And also, who iterates more than Nintendo? I mean, we eventually got down to a Nintendo 2DS, which sounds like a D grade, but it wasn't. So it's like they're absolutely going to do it. The more, and honestly, I don't even know where. I tried to work out what it could be. They also, and this is, you know, this comes straight from an earnings call or some kind of investor call, where Nintendo promised a game for fans that would delight them in Q1, the financial Q1, which means it's going to come out from April to June. Now, that already spits in the face of what we expect from the industry in 2019, because that means it's going to have a very short release, you know, a very short announcement to release window. But also, what the hell could it be? Because you have to imagine, if it's going to delight fans, it must be a game that people have been asking for, that people miss. But surely all of their big franchises and even their cult classics are out there right now, unless you have a surprising game you're going to wow me with, Sam.
No. Could be F-Zero, could be be Star Fox, who knows?
Well, see, I thought F-Zero, but then I thought there's just... it could be F-Zero, but I feel like the best way... to me, it just seems a bit of a Oh, you know what it could be? I don't even know. I don't think it'd be Star Fox just because we had all the stuff with Star Fox 2. To me, that wouldn't be a big enough...
And Atlas, and what was it? Battle for... Starlink, Battle for Atlas, sorry.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel... To me, when you want to delight fans... You don't announce, Mario Run 2. Do you know what I mean? That's not going to delight fans. I mean, okay, it's cool that I got another Mario game on my iPhone, but there's Odyssey and there's Smash Brothers and there's Mario Party. I think if you're going to sort of delight fans, you need to come up with a character or a franchise that they've missed. And yeah, the only one I've got is F-Zero, but they just seem so done with F-Zero that I can't imagine that would be it. But I don't know. I don't know what else. To Nintendo, a delightful game could be you got to water this flower and take care of it. And if you don't do it every day, it dies. It's delightful. I have no idea.
Well, has that Animal Crossing got a release date?
I don't know, But again,
it could be that they drop it then.
True, but I would be disappointed if that was that. Which sounds bad, but it's like, because I already know it's coming. Yeah, you're right. The announce date is just coming out in 2019. So you're right, it could be that. And you're right, that would delight fans. But for me, just because, that's not really my taste, Animal Crossing, which I know makes me a terrible person. But I would rather I want a surprise. That's what I want. But then again, the way they announced it, I don't think it's meant to be anything too huge. But who knows? I just found it interesting.
Who knows, yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to sort of something that's certainly topical, because I think at 8 p.m., so 4 hours from where we're recording this, EA is going to drop all the details, and I think put it live, and that is a little game called Apex Legends, which is from the creators of Titanfall. It's a free-to-play battle royale game. I mean, Sam, I'll let you take point on this one, and I'll jump in. People, to be fair... And again, my social media is always going to be skewed to people that like games, because obviously that's the network and the friends and the family and whatever people I put up around myself. But people were excited about this, kind of when details leaked out and then it all started coming together. I know a lot of people that thought this could be awesome. Obviously, the immediate response after that was, "We're the Titans." They're like, "It's not a Titanfall game. It's just made by these people." But yeah, man, what did you think about all this and why now?
Yeah, I don't really know. I think it's one of those things where maybe they were waiting for Blackout to do well, because like we said, the first person battle royale was untested at that point. And I think they hold I think the reason people are so excited is because they hold a soft spot in people's hearts, because I think people think that Titanfall is hard done by because it's better than everyone gives it credit for, because everyone sort of says it's an underrated gem. And so to have them move into the battle royale space, I think everyone's like, "Go on, you can do it. Like, it should be really good." They know what they're doing with shooting and everything. And yeah, it's just, how is it? The big question is obviously, how is it going to set itself apart? That's the only thing.
I find it weird as well, because obviously it's an EA-related property, and we still don't have whatever Battlefield's battle royale mode is called.
Firestorm or something.
That's the one. So I don't. And look, I'm sure. No matter what you think about EA, they're not stupid people. They're not going to do anything that's going to sacrifice their bottom line, nor should they. They're a big business. But it certainly does seem very odd to me that you would technically release what I see. It's the same concept, right? It's the same concept. So you take a video game franchise that is very popular and that people like, and then you create a battle royale mode out of that, because battle royale obviously is the thing right now. And you can argue that yes, Titanfall sort of lives in Battlefield shadow to a certain point of view, so nothing's really going to affect that. Like, if you're playing Battlefield, you're going to want to play the battle royale mode from that game because you just would. But if this one does take off, if this one can actually dent the genre, to me, that's just more competition for whatever it's called, Firestorm's time, because you only have so many time to play. And, you can play Fortnite, you've got PUBG, you've got Blackout, and then you've got Apex Legends, and you're going to have that. To me, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. And also, why now? Why a month? I think it's a month when Firestorm comes out. I'm pretty sure they said March. And the other thing, of course, is, what do they do differently? I mean, I've got the stream loaded up now. It kind of just looks like a very cool, luscious world. It almost looks a bit like dinosaurs, to be honest. I mean, it's nothing to do with dinosaurs, but the way the world looks just... Well, you see, you can go there now. I mean, you just find it on Twitch, and you'll find it's just type in Apex Legends to Google, and you'll find everything that you need. And obviously, by the time you're listening to this, the information is about to drop. So we are just speculating right now. But I don't know. I don't know what this could be. I don't know why now. I don't know if it is going to live. I know nothing. But I do know that the people that make Titanfall are very good at making video games.
Yeah, it seems like Battlefield is sort of the historical shooter sort of thing. But whenever I think of what Apex Legends is it, whatever I think about what it could be, it sort of my mind just drifts to blackout anyway because they're more in that sort of side of the shooter genre. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. And obviously, I'm very hopeful because of what they've done with Titanfall. So I'll have to wait and see.
That's the thing I want the most is that I like Battlefield and I like COD, but the shooting mechanic in Titanfall was the best. Surprise, surprise, because it was from the guys that kind of made all this a thing to begin with. So if they can incorporate that and maybe kind of iron out some of the things that I personally don't like about Battle Royale games, I'm not saying they are going to do that, but you'd like to think they come up with their own spin, and that own spin could make it just easier to play. But like this, I'll play it, right? It's know, it's clearly a response to what Epic have done with Fallout. It is going to be free to play. I imagine that there'll be microtransactions, but they'll all be geared towards an aesthetic. I don't think EA would make that decision again. There's just no point. You know, the backlash from it would be ridiculous. But it is fascinating. I mean, no one knew anything about this until Friday, and now here we are sat on the Monday. And like I say, in about 4 hours, we're going to be good to go. And if it does come out, Sam and I obviously both try and play it, and we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, I'd absolutely try it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And obviously, segueing off that as well, that Fortnite continues to be an absolute beast because I don't even understand how this worked. But for some reason, 10 million players tuned in to watch DJ Marshmello do a concert. I mean, I don't even know what does that mean. I mean, I don't know what that means. I'm old.
I think, from what I can gather, is people dropped in at a certain time that they were made aware of beforehand, and then everyone has dropped in, their weapons removed, and in Pleasant Park there was a big stage with Marshmello there. Because he has a skin in Fortnite, so it's his skin. And he played a 10-minute show and then sort of had a bit of a talk with them. And then there was gravity effects and stuff. So it's sort of like a virtual concert. It seems like a really interesting idea. Maybe not obviously the coolest because it's not got quite the same impact as a concert. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting at least. Surely, like a lot of people are just like, why would you? But it's just like, Marshmello is a big icon in Fortnite, and to have him put on a show within the game for fans to just show up at attend, that's pretty interesting.
No, I think I like it. I like stuff. I mean, I find it baffling because I'm an old man, but I like.
It is baffling. It's strange.
I imagine it would be the same thing as. I mean, it's a bit different, but I mean, in terms of games moving forward, I can imagine sort of however long ago, 20 years, probably longer. Somebody sat around going, well, why would I want to play with random people in Australia? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's that? What's online? You play with people on the sofa when you play multiplayer. You just got to accept that this is the way that things develop.
It's like, why would I want to watch that live DVD of a concert? That sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It is. And like I say, while it's lost on me, as Fortnite will always be, look, the fact that 10 million people, 10 million people watched it. The video's been watched over 11 million times already. It's, you can't look at that stuff and turn your nose up. You don't have to get it, but you can't turn your nose up at it because, Fortnite's become a phenomenon and they continue to evolve and they continue to come up with these cool ideas that are working. They are making a difference and people love it. So, in that sense, more power to them. I mean, absolutely more power to them. I should have mentioned this when we were talking about the Switch as well. And actually, this is quite interesting. I'm going to look this up as I go. Peter Molyneux said he wants to make his next game on the Switch. Now, where the hell has Peter Molyneux been? This is the other thing.
The Trail game that was released a few years ago, that sort of went under everyone's radars. But other than that, I don't really know.
That was the last thing he did in 2016. Yeah, was The Trail, and then he went absolutely quiet. And I look, for me, and look, who am I to knock? Who am I to knock Peter Molyneux? Clearly a guy that, very ambitious, very passionate about video games, obviously had his controversies too, but, never count a dog out the race or horse out the race, whatever that saying is. But to me, ever since, I don't want to be too harsh. Do you ever play Fable, basically, Sam?
Oh yeah, Fable 2 and 3. I didn't play the original, and going back to it wasn't really very good. But Fable 2 and 3, I loved.
Exactly right, and I'm the same. I think that trilogy is brilliant, but I understand people that say they felt let down by it simply because Peter Molyneux loves to overhype his games. However, a lot of the stuff that he introduced in those was revolutionary at the time, and certainly was taken on by other developers. Like the fact that if your actions in game will affect how people react to you, and sometimes it was quite on the nose. So if you stole, you'd walk past someone, they go, "You stole from me." It's like, right, who gives a shit? But it was cool, and Fable especially had a. It sounds so cheesy, but it's true. It had a certain. I like saying magic. Do you know what I mean? There's a personality to Fable. It didn't.
Yeah, it was very sort of like Shrek sort of tongue-in-cheek fairy tale sort of thing.
Yeah, and I liked playing it. That was the other thing. Like, I enjoyed playing it. But ever since then, I don't really know. And obviously, he was responsible for Black and White and Populous, so it's not like he is a one-hit wonder or anything. And I know that he's been working on something called Legacy for a while, which I get, that name probably means a lot given what he's trying to achieve here. And he has come out and said it's a big departure from what he's done before. But again, that's the point, right? He always says stuff like that, and eventually it becomes Boy Who Cries Wolf, and you don't know exactly what it's going to do. But as soon as I saw his name pop up, I honestly thought to myself, I just thought he'd kind of not packed it in, but he'd made his mark, and he'd kind of walked away to I don't know, focus on whatever.
Yeah, I have no idea what he's been doing. He sort of flew under the radar. I think he just sort of got a bit, because he said he'd never do a press interview again a while back, because everyone's mad at him, because I can't remember who it was, called it, asked if he was a pathological liar.
That was Eurogamer, wasn't it?
I thought it was Rock, Paper, Shotgun.
Oh, no, you're right. Sorry, it was Rock, Paper, Shotgun. You're right.
But yeah, I mean, I could understand why it'd fly under the radar, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, I would imagine he saw something in the Switch that he likes, and that's why he thought, okay, I can do something with this.
It does seem a good partnership, because what he achieved with especially the art styles of Black and White and Fable, I think that would be a perfect fit for Switch, whatever he'd do. I
think so, and I like to see what he's going to do. Again, Fable is up there as some of the best memories. I remember I was so excited about Fable. It's the game that made me want to have an Xbox. Like it wasn't Halo, it wasn't PGR, whatever else came out. It was Fable. I remember seeing those adverts. I remember reading about it on IGN and doing all these things and just being like, as a role playing game fan, I got to play this. And eventually, I did get one. I was a bit like, oh, it's not exactly what you said it was going to be, but it was enough. Do you know what I mean? It was enough to get me invested. And I think Fable 2 is the jewel out of those three games. I think Fable 2 was an absolute.
Fable 2 is so good.
It's so good, and there's different endings and. It genuinely does track how you're behaving, and it affects you, and it punishes you for that. Like a really, really good video game. Don't know how it would hold up now, but you don't stumble across that by accident. So I'm actually intrigued to see what he's going to do. I think it'll be quite good. Other weird news, and I never saw this coming, is that apparently EA has filed a new trademark for Jade Empire. Now, again, sometimes companies do this because they need to keep the trademark alive, or... they may be thinking about doing a remaster. There's loads of other things. But Jade Empire is a very weird game because it's kind of the BioWare game that everybody forgot about. It was set in medieval Japan. Is that right? I did play it. But
feudal Japan?
Feudal Japan, that's right. It was set in feudal Japan. Did you ever play it?
No, I've got it on Xbox. So I had it for a while. It's one of those games, I could get around to that at some point, but I'm just never going to.
It's one of those things where it kind of, unlike most BioWare, this is how I took it anyway, but I never got through it enough to actually probably give it a real opinion, for lack of a better term. But it was kind of like, it took everything that KOTOR had done, and that was interesting anyway, because obviously BioWare had been working with Star Wars for a while, and this was their first original IP, so that's fascinating anyway. But obviously they got rid of the combat system in KOTOR that a lot of people didn't like, the whole stop-starty thing. I really liked that. I enjoyed kind of stacking up my party to do certain things. It's a bit like chess, and I think it always works in video games. But here, obviously, they switched to a real-time combat system. They kept all the morality system. They kept all the narrative parts. But the cool thing about it is that it's the first game for me where they tried to mix everything they were doing away from the gameplay and mix it into a combat system that people would understand. And that's why it was so good. I don't think the story... This is one of the reasons I stopped playing it. I don't think the story hooks its claws into you as much as their other games. And obviously, it's so hard coming from Star Wars, right? You can write a shit Star Wars thing and people are going to like it because people love Star Wars. Here, you're introducing new characters and it's a new world and so on and so forth. But I genuinely think it's something that they could bring back. I think the setting is cool. I think the environment was cool. I do think their combat system had potential. And yeah, when I saw it, it kind of made me go on nostalgia. I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I only played it for maybe sort of 5-6 hours total. But that's not the best review ever, is it? But there was something to it. But there was something to it. That's the thing. There absolutely was something to it. So,
yeah, I might play it if it's backwards compatible on Xbox One.
I would like them to do it. I mean, I really, really would. And this is the other thing to tie into that. There's rumours going around at the moment that the PS5, and the PS5 is obviously in development, but the latest one to come out is that Sony are going to release some kind of backwards compatibility for the PS5. And maybe that's what ties into all of this. Maybe EA have trademarked that because they know about it. And they're like, oh man, we're going to release Jade Empire on the PS5. I mean, that seems very unlikely, I know, but you just don't know. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But I don't know. I think it's always good that a console does have backwards compatibility. But at the same time, I don't need it anymore. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I always think that I want to go back and play older games. And then I never do. I'm just like, well, no, I don't have it's difficult to find the time, but also I'd rather play new games that are coming out.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't think if backwards compatibility came in, it would mean the same thing now, because I think if you continued the PS4 and they didn't want to push the hardware, you could do that. Really, like nobody would be like, oh, why are we dealing with this? Nobody's like here playing God of War and playing Red Dead Redemption and being like, oh, where's this new technology? This looks trash. You know what I mean?
It's true.
So I think this is sort of a way to sort of just blur the technology, if you know what I mean. So you get the PS5 and then you could still play PS4 games because these still have value. And I don't think, Sony or anyone else wants to cut off of like their exclusives, like, oh, you can only play God of War on PS4, or the developer would need to re-release a PS5 version. I think it wouldn't be a case of playing old games, it'd just be a case of keeping that family together, like Xbox said with the Xbox One X and the S, be like keeping the whole family together and just making sure the hardware was just getting better and better and better each time.
Yeah.
Whereas now we take backwards compatibility to mean like old games on the Xbox 360, which are old. Like God of War doesn't feel old, but like say God of War 2 and 3, they feel old. And so, yeah, I think it would just be a way to just keep everyone together. Because if I had to shell out on PS5 and then I had to buy a PS5 version of God of War, if you know what I mean, I keep using God of War, I don't think it would make much sense. That's just my theory anyway.
No, I totally agree with you as well, especially because obviously at some point we're going to get the next God of War.
Yeah.
And at that point, building up, you want to push that old game hard, especially because I don't think there's going to be any huge technical leaps forward that all of a sudden you're going to look back at that game and think it looks crap. Like not for a long time. Like it's not, we're not on the verge of getting to the point where 200 frames per second is the industry standard, or I mean, again, 1080, even though 4K is doing all right, it's not like it's surpassed 1080p to any great degree. I mean, things do look better in 4K, but God of War runs fine. And I think to move to a PS5 and then kill this library that you've built up would be absolute madness.
And it's like Killzone, Shadowfall, and the Order 1886, which are early PS4 games, 5 years old each. You wouldn't look at them and be like, "Oh, can we get a new console, please?" You know what I mean? So I think it's just we're not going to be at a point where the games are going to be old and nobody wants to play them for ages, like you say.
No, I think it's a really smart thing to do as well, because again, something like Spider-Man, I think that benefits whoever they're working with at Marvel as well. If you're making Spider-Man 2 and you can say to them, look, let's have a big build-up for the original Spider-Man, push it on PS5 and who knows what else. And, maybe you can do a deal. You didn't play the first Spider-Man, buy the second one and you get the first one for a $5. And you know what? You can play it all on your PS5. Like, it's all good marketing points to hit. It all sounds exciting. And again, it's not something that we've ever really done before. Like, everyone kind of tries to push backwards compatibility, as you say, is you can play your original Xbox games, but no one's doing it. Well, I don't think so anyway. Like I see people wanting it, and then it's released, and no one actually seems to give a crap.
Yeah, I think people get caught up by when they hear all these old titles they love to be like, yeah, woo, but then I don't think a lot of people actually, like you say, go out and actively try to play them again. So yeah, it would be interesting to see the stats on that one, to be fair. I
think it would be lower. I think it'd be lower than we think. I think it's something that sounds great because everybody wants to go back and play whatever. But then you don't. There's too many games coming out. Time and time is getting more precious. Everybody's only got a certain amount of entertainment dollars. To me, the games I always want to go back and play are the ones that you can download. So like Guacamelee, like Valiant Hearts, like Rogue Legacy. Like Rogue Legacy I was playing this week just because it's a really fun game to play for half an hour here and there. But it doesn't require that much space. It doesn't really age because of the way that it's been developed. So you can just keep it there and it's not going to make a difference. So I don't know. I just don't think backwards compatibility. I remember, I think it was the Xbox 360 or one of the Xbox consoles. People were livid about it. Oh, I can't believe you've taken out backwards compatibility. And then they did something, and then Microsoft released some figures and went, nobody played it. And I think sometimes it's a reaction, right? It sounds awful, but when you actually sit down and let it process, you're like, you know what? It's not really going to change my life.
Yeah, because if you don't have it, it sounds like you're cutting off people who can't afford your new tech. Whereas really, it's not exactly like that, but that's what it sounds like, basically.
Yeah, it does. But I would always rather they took that and put it into something else. That's just where I've got to now. And if I ever get to a point where I want to play, I don't know, the original Mario Kart, they're going to release it for me to play in some guys. And yeah, that's going to require 8, 10, 12 pounds. But if you really, I mean, you could just go get your SNES out. If you really don't want to play it, it plays fine on the SNES. SNES is the greatest console ever. It'll be amazing forever. Actually, talking about Microsoft and sort of bringing in technology as well, this I found fascinating. Microsoft wants to bring the Xbox Live to Switch, Android, and iOS. To me, that blows my brain, only because I'm so entrenched in the whole, the rivalry. Obviously, they'd never do that on, they never released it on the PlayStation 4 because that is very much competition. But given something that we were talking about recently, and we were talking at the PSP last week, how neither Sony or Sony tried and failed, and Microsoft didn't even try to make a play for that portable space. I think this is kind of their way of saying, look, we've got this really cool thing called Xbox Live. You are essentially mobile-related platforms. We have no interest in getting into that. We do have some phones out there that have our branding on it, but other than that, we don't care. What can we do in order for us to sort of be a part of what you're doing, but not necessarily that be our be-all and end-all. And if nothing else, it puts the end to those rumours that Microsoft are 100% releasing. Do you remember all those? Microsoft are definitely releasing a portable console. So are they? I haven't heard anything about. I remember at one point, the other thing was that Halo was going to be on the 3DS. They were going to make a 3DS Halo game. Maybe that happens now. But to me, I think that's really cool. I don't know sort of the pros and cons of bringing it onto that stuff, other than obviously the tie-in it would have with cross-platform play. But to me, anything you can do where you can sort of sew all these things together, I'm all right with it.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Just have it, because they sort of do it half the way at the moment with Windows PC and Xbox. I remember every time I play the Xbox and I've got the computer on, it always pops up with my achievements at the same time on both. So they're sort of like trying to do this ecosystem, and to have it on phones as well with whatever you're playing on your phones. And Switch is surprising, but obviously like they're friends, Nintendo and Microsoft. You always had that Minecraft partnership, I think it was. They're friends together, and the fact that you can contain all your friends and achievements and socializing in just one place, rather than being like, I'm just going to log into a Switch now and do a separate thing. And then, so yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And obviously, it would be great if it was on all platforms, but it's just, I don't think that's going to ever happen with Microsoft and Sony.
No, that will always be that is the long-term Nintendo versus Sega, isn't it? We had Nintendo versus Sega for 10, 15 years, whatever it was. But this one is going to go on for days, simply because, Sega were a video game company, Nintendo were a video game company, Microsoft and Sony are entities that range far above just video games.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I like it. I like the idea. I think Xbox Live is a good service. I mean, I don't necessarily think I'd use it on my Switch, but I like the fact we can kind of connect the dots there. But certainly on my phone, again, I don't know how that presents itself, but I think there's a way. I think there's something in it. I think it's smart for Microsoft to kind of make these decisions.
I think it'll be great for those people who, like a lot of people don't have an Xbox One and a PS4. But like if you have an Xbox One with a Switch as a backup sort of console, and then you've got your phone and everything, that just Xbox Live would then cater for everything. So you've got your whole thing tied in one system, and you don't have to fragment anything, which would be really good. I think that's sort of what they're aiming at.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like it. Last bit of news is also, and Sam, I think you know more about this than I do. I saw a headline, obviously you mentioned it before we started. Creative Assembly and Michael Condrey are starting a new 2K studio, or they've come together to create a new 2K studio, or an FPS game for 2K. Is that right?
Well, I think you've got two bits of news and you've put it all in one.
Well, that's what I like to do. I like to spin the news.
Because Creative Assembly is working on a new FPS game, which I've just saw.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I don't know much about that news. I just saw the headline. But a separate bit of news, Michael Condrey is setting up a new studio at 2K. But it's working on an unannounced project, which is very mysterious. But obviously, he's got a lot of experience. He's Dead Space and Call of Duty, and yeah, so he's owned his own studio in Silicon Valley, working on something very exciting for 2K.
Because he was on Sledgehammer Games for a while, right?
Yeah, he was the co-founder of Sledgehammer Games until World War II came out, and then he left.
Yeah, so it was him and Glenn Schofield, and Glenn Schofield's gone off to do his own thing as well. Is that right? We don't know what he's doing either, do we?
Yeah, I don't know what Glenn Schofield's doing.
Well, that is interesting. I mean, I would get those two back together again, because I think they make great games. Obviously, they worked together on Dead Space, unless they fell out with each other. I don't know. They also made Michael Condrey. I just looked it up to double check. He was also the guy that made or helped me. He was the director on James Bond 007, Everything or Nothing. And talking about those games we were mentioning earlier, those kind of things that fall into this weird middle ground, but are still brilliant. That game is excellent. Like, never get more than 7, 8 out of 10 tops, but so much fun to play. Like, broken in many ways, but so much fun to play. Like, absolutely loved it. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, I'd love to see what he's going to do. Obviously, 2K, big studio, got a lot of money. And then so the other one is that Creative Assembly have just announced that they're working on a new FPS game. Is that right?
Yes, I'm not sure we have any details about that. Like I said, I just saw the headline as soon as we started recording. So.
That's interesting, though, because isn't the last FPS they worked on Alien Isolation?
Is that an FPS?
Not really, I guess. It's a tactical FPS. Is that what it means? I don't know what that means. No, I don't think that means that at all. No, ignore that. That's just somebody that's written it in a bizarre way. I wonder what that could be. I find that fascinating because their history in terms of the games they make, to go from Total War to something like Alien Isolation and now whatever this will be. They did make Alien Isolation. I'm not making that up, am I? That was Creative Assembly. Yeah, it was. It was. That's straight up. I mean, the first thing people are going to want is Alien Isolation. Technically a new game, but they said new IP though, didn't they? I don't know. That is interesting. Well, everyone loved that game, so watch this space.
Yeah, I'm looking at the details, and that the news is that they're working on an FPS, and that is it. That is just everything we know.
I showed it to Neil Blomkamp as well. I saw that tweet. I was like, all right, okay, that's such a strange specific thing. Well, there we go. There you go. That's it. If you're into that kind of thing, if you enjoyed anything they've done, you'd have to wait and see to see what they do now. Fascinating. Very strange.
Colonial Marines too.
Can you imagine they did and they made it work? I've read a lot of articles recently saying that Colonial Marines isn't as bad as people made out. I never played it, so I can't comment on it. But
I was very excited for it before release, but obviously it came out and I was like, whoa, I'll stay clear of that. So,
well, that was just bad from start to finish, really. Oh well. Right, so I did tweet out as well, and I thought mentioned last week that we may answer some questions, and that is exactly what we are going to do now. As always, I haven't read any of these, so I'm sure some of them will be ridiculous, but hey, that's half the fun. Anyway, my man Daniel McIver, do you feel, if at all, here we go, the perception of gaming as a media industry has improved in the wider world? In the sense of it's the biggest money-making industry in media, but still has a stigma of it's just kids playing it attached to it that film, TV, streaming doesn't. I mean, yes, that is probably still true. I think that's a generational thing, though. Streaming is a lot easier for an older generation to understand because it's just films, but with the internet. And the internet has become so big, they can process it. Whereas video games is an entirely different experience where you hold a controller and, again, you interact with what you're seeing. And, a lot of people don't play games and they just respond to headlines in tabloids that say this game is doing bad thing here, and they believe it because they don't have any education to understand otherwise. So I do think it's getting better as kind of the older generation moves on, the younger generation that's used to video games grows up, but I don't think that will shift entirely for another 5-10 years until we've actually had that complete circle of life moment.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It's you just need to look at one article, say like BBC Sports goes like, should esports be in the Olympics? And then everyone comes out of the woodwork, and then like every time there's an article on Fortnite, it's like all of the mums come out of the woodwork, just to be like, it's poisoning the youth. It's just, it's no different than in the 90s, that classic joke of like, come back for the TV because it'll make your eyes go square and TV's poisoning the youth.
It's true, yeah.
It's just the things that are new and that kids spend time doing. You're worried that what they're spending time doing is poisoning them. But, if they were, I don't know, going outside, but also, I don't know, there was a big bee epidemic, you'd be worried about bees. You know what I mean? So that's an awful.
No, it's good. I'm always worried about genuinely, I'm always worried about bees. I hate bees. Bees scare the absolute shit out of me.
The worst thing about bees is that you never want to appear too undignified and running away from one in public. Exactly. So you just want to calmly eject yourself in the situation, but you can't without running and flating.
Instead, you do that weird kind of Twitch thing where you try and go slow, but actually you're going 100 miles an hour. So you kind of do this slow, fast nonsense.
Yeah.
But no, it's always generational. Again, it's like Sam and I were talking about Fortnite earlier in terms of that concert. I think, thankfully, I can't speak for Sam, but for me especially, I always like to try and stay up to date with that stuff. I'm not super old, but I'm in my early 30s. And I think it's cool that they're doing that. I may not necessarily understand it, but I never look down on it because I like to embrace the change and I like to see what's going on. Hence why I jumped into all the YouTube stuff when I did. I thought, this is cool. I'm going to give it a go. So, Yeah.
It reminds me of a very heartwarming quote I heard from Terry Crews recently, because he was talking about Crackdown 3, and he was talking about how he was saying he used to be a professional football player, but like his son is now into building PCs, and he had the quote something like, "I'd rather go into his world than force him into mine."
Brilliant.
And I think that's a really good way to look at it from sort of an older perspective, because he doesn't really get it, I don't think, but it's just like, at least tries, which is really nice.
Exactly, and just accepts that the world moves on, and the world does move on. Again, with the Fortnite thing, 10 million people joining means you've done it right. You know, you've hit something on the head. And I don't know about the rise of Netflix because I wasn't really paying attention, but yeah, there probably were some people that thought this was doom and gloom. There always is. Spark the Shadow Tiger, which is an amazing name. Thoughts on the current situation with EA and Bethesda? I don't even know about that. Sam, do you know about the current
situation?
Does he mean BioWare? And is there a situation between any of them?
Or maybe it's with EA and also like Bethesda's own.
Oh, okay.
Well, maybe it's not.
Well, let's say they are. What are the situations? I don't think there are. EA continues.
I think Bethesda's situation is Fallout 76.
Yeah,
I think people are maybe angry about Anthem, or people are angry about Anthem in various ways, but I don't think it's a Bethesda comparable situation.
No, and also it's very much. You're right to be upset about it if you are upset, but I've also seen a lot of people saying they're actually quite confident in Anthem too. So I don't necessarily think they're situations that I'm trying to think of like the Battlefront 2. That was a situation, right? That genuinely blew up and it ruined a video game and, crushed a fan base. Whereas I think Anthem is still finding its feet and also can put its hands up and say, hey, we're not out yet properly. I think most people just upset. I think most people were a bit surprised it was very Destiny heavy. I don't think many people were. Well, I wasn't expecting that. And as for Fallout 76, as we've discussed it many a time, some people love that game. So
some people do.
They do. So I don't think it's a situation really. Unless, of course, I understand it being a situation in some people's lives, but to me, it's just par for the course. Daniel, do you get scared playing Resident Evil 2 remake? Of course I do. I'm a big wuss. Have you played it yet, Sam? Have you played it? You get scared at games,
I've played
right?
it a bit before. It was, I mean, I'm not usually that scaredy cat anyway, but like there's bits like the beginning of Resident Evil 7, when the wolf jumps out at you. That was really bad. But usually not very. So, I mean, I haven't played it a lot though, so I've only played a little sample.
Yeah, it is scary. But then again, I get scared by someone going boo. So I'm not exactly the best template. Perfects. I can't answer this, Sam. You may be able to. How can I prevent my IP getting stolen when playing online? I don't think you can.
I ain't got a clue.
No, just be careful. Garth, with the increased PS5 reports chatter recently, what do you think they'll have lined up as launch titles? Oh man, I mean that's like pulling straws. I mean it could be anything, right?
Yeah, it could be absolutely anything.
I mean,
no idea.
I think you have to look at what they've released in Last of Us 2, I think is probably a good shout. I can imagine them holding something like that off, but also maybe doing a dual release too. It wouldn't surprise me to see it on PS4 and PS5. Nintendo have proven you can do that and no one really gives a crap. Other than that, though, I would imagine there'll be it depends when it comes out. If they release it in September, they'll absolutely push FIFA on PS5. Do you know what I mean? They'll absolutely go to all those games and look. The companies do that all the time. But in terms of actual sort of special games that are going to be exclusive, if it's out there, you can start arguing that, they'll hold it off. Otherwise, it'll be a bunch of new games we don't even know about.
Could be Skatefall.
It could be. It literally could be right now, right? We don't actually know.
If we're clutching at straws, let's do that.
My man Adam Pearson, always very nice to me. What is your most controversial gaming opinion? Mine is that I think Fortnite is overrated. I do think Fortnite's... personally, I don't understand why people like it as much as they do, but I also respect the fact that it's so big. My most controversial gaming opinion... Well, I guess I hate Dark Souls, right? I didn't think it used to be that controversial, but every time I say it, I manage to annoy at least 50 people at any one time. So, I say 100% the fact that I think Dark Souls is one of the worst games ever made. There you go. Easy.
Yeah, I think Last of Us is well overrated. So.
I think that's fair too. I love that game and probably slap a 10 on it, but I still understand... I understand people's criticisms with it.
Yeah, so, I'd say it's probably like an 8 out of 10. And then people were just like, they don't even hear that. They're just too incensed. There's blood like coming out of their ears. And they're like, what did you just say?
But it's weird that as well, isn't it? Because The Last of Us is a great experience, but you could absolutely argue that the gameplay is left wanting. I don't think many people could argue that. But hey, what do I know? Deluxe Edition. Should Simpsons Hit and Run get a remake? No. I think those Crazy Taxi games were bad. Not bad, but boring before. So I don't want it back now.
They just wouldn't. I think they were of their time. I don't think if you remade it, it would sort of do any purpose. They were GTA clones, right? Let's be serious. I loved the hit and run. They were GTA clones now, and they're too small. They're too limited. And just if you want to play them, just re-release maybe, but they don't need a remake.
Also, I don't think anybody wants to be throwing their money behind The Simpsons anymore. I love The Simpsons, but
Simpsons have not got the same weight as it did in the mid-2000s.
Exactly. That ship has sailed. Yoku Masaki, thoughts on Mortal Kombat 11. It's more Mortal Kombat, but it's brilliant. And it has the stupidest, what do you call it? Fatalities I've ever seen, but in the best possible way. Literally cried laughing at one of them when Baraka ate the guy's face in the brain. I mean, genuinely,
I saw that actually, yeah.
Genuinely hilarious. David Ayers, are you interested in the Titanfall Battle Royale yet? We've established that. I think both of us are intrigued, to say the least. Grumpy Boy, do you think microtransactions are ruining games or are going to ruin them? Well, we just talked about controversial opinions. No, I don't, because I feel if they were going to, they already would have done by now. And actually, I don't mean to be that guy, but when you look into the statistics and the business metrics, doing really well for companies. A lot of people, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying that, these aren't kids buying them that do need to be monitored better. But I do know right now a lot of gaming companies are making more profits than ever. And a large reason for that is microtransactions. I do think they need to be regulated better. And I do think we need to have some kind of rules in place. But in terms of actually ruining the industry, define ruin. But in terms of its success, no, I don't think it's going to at all.
No, I don't think so either. I think they're getting more aware that they can't just do what they want with them, like Star Wars Battlefront 2, like we've said, and obviously more tighter regulations like Belgium and stuff. It's obviously going to keep happening, and it's going to be a long time before it's like perfect. But I don't think it's a sort of, I don't think it's as cash grab as people make out. It's still obviously looking for your cash, but if it is pay to win, like you will get called out for it, and your game will suffer. So people aren't going to do that.
Yeah, I think Fortnite's got it right. Of course it has. Aesthetic, and Overwatch too. Aesthetic that you can pay for or you can ignore. And I think that the industry or the consumer base has decided that's okay. Because that's okay, right? Because it's happened. So nobody seems to mind. Non-WWE guy. What PS4 games would you recommend for somebody who wants to get back into gaming but doesn't want to be frustrated to the point of hurling anything across the room? Well, not Dark Souls. Straight away. Not Bloodborne 2. I mean, I personally would buy God of War and put it on easy. I think you'll absolutely love that.
I think those linear games, Uncharted 4 would probably be very good, even if you haven't played the others.
Absolutely, and Spider-Man as well. I think
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I think get any game like that, smash it onto easy, and you will have an absolute whale of the time. Especially if you haven't played games in a while. If you kind of have memories of playing games a few years ago and come back to games like that, I think you'll love it. Even something like Red Dead. I mean, it depends what you like from games. It's not hard, Red Dead. It's just a bit intimidating. But it is amazing. And if you're into that kind of thing, it will take over your life. So you just have to maybe ease yourself into it a little bit. Yeah. Jonathan Mullen, are you going to play the Devil May Cry demo on Thursday or the full game next month? Well, given that I didn't even know a Devil May Cry 5 demo was out on Thursday, I'm going to opt for no. Sam, are you going to play the DMC5 demo?
No, I don't usually. I didn't know it was coming out, but I don't usually play demos before release anyway. I just rather have the full experience. You know what I mean? Just if I can have the full experience, just wait for that. So, unless it's like a multiplayer test before I shell out money, because what DMC is one of those ones I know where I'm going to shell out money before the demo arrives or not. Whereas at Anthem, I was on the fence about. That's why I played the demo.
They're not really my type of games either. Like, people sing the praises of Bayonetta, I could never get into it. I could never understand it. Devil May Cry, I remember I bought the trilogy ages ago, and it just wasn't for me. I just couldn't get into it. And what's the other one that everybody loved that was like an action game, whatever you want to call them? There's no point sitting here thinking about it. But whatever that was, again, I tried that too, and I was just like, these games aren't... Oh, it was Metal Gear Rising. That was their action game, wasn't it? Is it Rising? The one where you play Raiden, or whatever it was called. I don't remember. But,
yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and I like Metal Gear, so I thought maybe I just don't like that kind of format. I don't know why.
Hack and slash arcadey.
Well, I don't mind hack and slash when it's really easy, but I feel like those games require a bit more dedication than just smashing one button.
Yeah.
And I prefer to be a bit of a moron and just walk around and smashing my controller.
Yeah.
I get more out of that. Sam, I'll aim this one at you because we haven't talked about it for a while. And obviously this guy has very clear feelings on it. Billy Radbourne says, is Fallout 76 past the point of saving? Now, I don't think he's listened before, clearly. But, I'm an equal opportunist. I mean, I imagine you're still playing it. I imagine you still quite like it. So, what's your take on people that clearly are done with it?
Well, it depends what you mean past the point of saving. I think there's a lot of people out there whose mind has been made up, just like it was with No Man's Sky. The launch was bad and it's gone in their mind, and that's cool. Past the point of saving, I don't think that's true because you've got a committed fan base already, and they release updates. They've got plans this month they got the plans this year for survival mode. They've got more PvE content. They're constantly working on improving the game in terms of the base stuff. So you're getting improvements and content additions, and we got plans for that confirmed. So it's not like, oh, this is a bad launch, let's wash our hands of it and move on. Like, they're committed to building that base, and as much as the horror stories still exist out there, it's not unplayable. It's not this mess that you can't even boot up. It is a game that I've sunk a lot of hours into, and it obviously has technical issues, but it's one that it has a foundation strong enough that can be built upon. So I don't think it needs to be saved even, you know what I mean? I think it just needs to constantly be polished for the players that are in there, and hopefully to get rid of the stigma that it has so other players can get on board. I don't think it needs saving at all. I think that's a bit dramatic.
I love it because you come from such a clearly educated point of view on it. So if anyone comes at it, you're like, well, actually, here's all the facts. It's like, okay, yeah, good point. And finally, the classic question. Luke says, if you could only play one game in 2019, what would it be? Now I have to remember what's coming out. Gears 5 is this year, right? Well, apparently this year.
Apparently, yeah.
I mean, they're saying that. I think I need to see more before I'd actually put that in my... Do you know what I mean? Like, because as I said about Gears 4, loved it, but kind of felt like I played it all before. I'm literally just scanning through a release date now to see if anything jumps out. Do you know what? In terms of having fun, I would give a shout out to Mortal Kombat 11 because I feel like the best thing about beat 'em ups is that you can always go back to them, and if you like the way they approach things, they will sink their teeth in. Gears 5, obviously. I'm just kind of picking games now. I'm not going to choose one. I'll pick a few. Luigi's Mansion 3, I would throw in there because I want to see what they're going to do with that. They'd be my 3. I mean, there's plenty of games we don't even know that are going to be announced yet. But in terms of things we do know coming out, I think those are the 3 types of games that would at least make me happy. And I think that's what video games are all about anyway. So
yeah, I think by that same logic, I would go for Anthem, to be honest, because I've got a lot of friends that I know that are getting Anthem. And I think I'd just probably get the most use out of that if I had to pick one game to buy and play, because it's just, the squads of 4. Like we said before, like if you have squads of 4 on any game, you can pretty much have a really good time. I enjoyed it. It did blow me away, but I enjoyed what I played of it, and I think I'd just get the most time out of that one. So if I had to, then Anthem, yeah.
I'm intrigued. I want to get into that Destiny model. I just, at the moment, nothing's been able to do it. If Anthem's a game to do it, hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Is that demo done now? Is it over, the demo? Is it finished?
Yes, so the open demo's over, and then we're just waiting. I think it's released now, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's 3 weeks' time. I mean, 3 weeks on Thursday, Friday, something like that. It's soon.
2 weeks' time.
2 weeks' time. 2 weeks' time. Well,
it's February 15th.
There we go.
Or less than 2 weeks.
There we go. It's coming up. Get ready for it. It's going to be interesting. It's
It's next Friday. Oh, my Lord.
It's going to annoy the internet, and then we're going to have to go and see what happens. I look forward to that stuff. Right, that's it. I think that's everything that we've got. The Walking Dead, the final season, comes to retail this March. If you care, I know some people do still hold out to play those games. That literally went live about 5 minutes ago. So you do wait to play the Walking Dead. Actually, you should. That's the end of Telltale Games, that is, which is unbelievable, really, given what they were a few years ago. But hey ho, that's the word. That's the word of video games for you. And that's that. I don't think nothing's major is coming out over the next week or so, is it? I say tentatively. What are we on today? It's the 4th. So
you got Metro Exodus next week as well.
Yeah, you do, and you got Crackdown, obviously.
Crackdown 3 in a week. On that week, you got Jump Force on that same day, and then you've got on the 22nd, you've got something. It's right there, but I can't remember.
Isn't Anthem the 22nd, actually? Doesn't Anthem come out the 22nd? Oh, I don't know. Who cares?
It's the 15th. Maybe I've got that entirely wrong. I might have got that entirely wrong.
Either way.
It's Far Cry New Dawn on the 15th, and then Anthem on the 22nd.
That's what it is. Yeah. All right, so somehow, I will probably play Crackdown, to be honest. Maybe not, but maybe I can play it before next week if I get, I'll look into it. Either way, we'll start talking about all those next week if you've been waiting for it. If anyone plays the game called The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince, please get in touch. I have no idea what the hell that was, but I see it advertised everywhere, and I want someone to come and let me know. Right, that's it. Please do subscribe if you're on iTunes. You can follow me on Twitter at Simon316. Sam is on Twitter at Sam Bishop 3 P's and a 1. All of this is on YouTube as well. YouTube.com/Report Rules. You can sign up there. All supported by Patreon. Patreon.com/Simon316. Thank you to everyone that supports. You have no idea how much it helps me day to day. It's what I do. That's it. That's all video game stuff. Sam, keep playing games. Keep enjoying yourself.
Keep loving life.
Keep loving. Exactly. Keep loving life. Thank you for joining me as always. And
my pleasure as always.
we'll be back next week. Really, as the video game calendar, as we've just established, warms up. There's like four massive games in the next sort of 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Nuts. All right, there we go. It starts, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll talk to you again soon.